Well, hey there. I'm so glad that you are with me on another episode of the Thriving Christian Artist podcast. A lot of times when we're walking through life, things take a turn, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Jesus said it rains on the just and the unjust equally. And our ability to walk through the seasons of life with grace and with faith and with a yes in our heart really defines the experience by which we experience life and how we're able to walk in the goodness of God. One of the people who I've had the great privilege of the last 4+ years to watch do this very thing is Jan Thoreen Lewis. She's been a part of our Created to Thrive Artist Mentoring Program, now part of our Mastery Program this year. And Jan has walked through some pretty tough stuff in these last few years, health challenges with her husband, her art business changing, moving locations, and just, could be very much in a situation of asking, God, what are you doing? And this doesn't make sense. And yet, in the middle of that, has continued to point her heart to Jesus, renew her mind toward the truth, and give God her yes at every point, even when it's not been easy. And I'm super excited to bring her story to you today, because I know wherever you are today, whether you're walking through an incredible season or whether you're walking through a challenging season, Jan's perspective on the journey that we all walk is really going to be a really, really big encouragement to you. One of the things that Jan mentions in this podcast episode is the power of community and being able to share the journey with others along the way. And I can't think of a better opportunity for you to be able to share the journey with other artists right now than to be a part of our Artist Rise Up Masterclass and Art Challenge. It starts actually September 20th, but you can jump into the Facebook group right now. It's absolutely free. It's 5 masterclass teachings that I'll be doing live inside the Facebook group, in addition to an art challenge that goes along with each one of those, plus thousands and thousands of Christian artists from all over the world in just about every creative medium who are loving Jesus, going after the call of God in their life, wanting to grow themselves artistically, creatively, spiritually, and want to do it together as they link arms with other creatives around the world. And I want to invite you to be a part. It's absolutely free. You can just go to www.artistriseup.com and you can register. Also, you can click the link that's right here in the show notes. And once you do, you'll be able to get the printable workbook that's there, as well as notifications about when all the sessions are going to be. They're live, but also will give you the recordings as well when you register, so that if you're at work or something comes up, you can binge watch them as you need to. All right. We would love to have you join us for that. Go to artistriseup.com. Be sure to register and let us know that you're going to be a part of this incredible time together. All right. Well, hey, I'm going to get out of the way. Like I said, you're going to love meeting my friend Jan Lewis, and I hope you're really, really inspired by her story. If you are, take a moment and share it on social media, on Instagram or on Facebook, and let others know that this podcast is a blessing in your life. All right, here's my friend, Jan Lewis. Well, hey, friends, so glad that you're with me on the podcast today. I've really been looking forward to this episode of the Thriving Christian Artist podcast, because I love interviewing people who I've been able to walk with for a while. And Jan Thoreen Lewis is one of those people. Jan, thank you so much for being on the podcast today with me.
I'm so honored. Thank you for inviting me. This is a real privilege, and I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For those who are just getting to know you and everything, why don't you let us know who you are, where you're from, what you do creatively, and then we'll jump in.
Yes. I am in Southwest Colorado, in a little town called Cortez. Only moved here a couple of years ago. Spent my entire adult life from right out of college up until 2 years ago in Buena Vista, Colorado, which is how the locals pronounce it, just so nobody wants to jump in and say it's Buena Vista. There is Buena Vista. There's a whole backstory for that. But I had a very long career as a watercolorist, but started out in graphic design and still love that to this day. But in the last 4 years, I have added oils. And so I'm doing a lot of my new work in oils, which has been really, really fun. I'm in the last couple of years also learning to live alone, because my husband is now in a long-term care facility. So life has definitely taken a hard right in the last few years.
Yeah. Yeah. I've said this to you before, but I just really truly mean it. You are one of the most courageous people that I
Mm,
know, as not only as an artist, but just as a person,
mm.
walking through the season of life that you're in and that sort of thing. And it's interesting, you know. So I'm 48 right now. Am I 48? I'm 47. I'll be 48 in September. It's the days start going, Jan. You know,
They do. They go. They go faster all the time.
that's right. But I remember, you know, a couple of years ago, we were in relationship then when my mom went through her bone cancer and all that, and then died suddenly. And I mean, that was kind of the first reality check for Tanya and I of, oh wow, things are changing in life, and roles change and that sort of thing. And so I wanted to, jump into a little bit of that today with you and talk about how all of that is changing for you and how you're walking through that, because I think one of the things that really defines us as people is how are we able to walk through the different seasons of life with grace and with strength. And you and Dave have had this beautiful life, all of these years. Talk about that. When did you guys get married, and what was life like for years previously, kids and career wise? You were in graphic design and that sort of thing. I mean, what's that look like all these years?
Absolutely. Well, back when there were dinosaurs roaming the earth, we fell in love. We actually met in 1971 at Frontier Ranch in Buena Vista.
Wow.
And both of us involved with Young Life, and I was on summer staff, and so had the forbidden summer romance. But got married 3 years later, and at Trail West Lodge, which was the first wedding there at the lodge, which is Young Life's kind of adult facility.
Yeah.
And so obviously a lot of connection to that organization in our lives. We raised our family in Colorado. I have 3 grown children, 6 grandchildren, and built a really, like you said, a beautiful life. And you are so grateful for it in the moment. I wish now that I had been more grateful all the time, every moment, even during the hard times, because you never know what's coming.
Yeah.
And so fortunately, I have a family that is incredibly supportive, present, helpful, kind, and wants to connect. And that's just so important. Just that I really encourage people to really make it a goal to connect deeply with those in their lives that will possibly need their support in the future, or you might need theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, talk about your art, because for many people their art is a vocation, for many it's a hobby, for some of us enter into it sideways. So what was the art journey along with, how did that fit in with this professionally or as a hobby or for you?
Well, that's a really good question, because it's a little convoluted. So I studied graphic design at Long Beach State University in California. Love, love, love it. I still love it to this day. I'm a font nerd. I can geek out on design stuff all day long. And but I quickly, because that was in the early 70s, I quickly became a dinosaur, back to the analogy, because everything went to computers almost right after I left college. And I had also studied sign painting and calligraphy and some kind of tangential things that I thought would be helpful along the way. And little did I know how important they would become in my life. And so I was able to create income by being not just a graphic designer, although I was doing things the old-fashioned way by hand, because back then computer generated art was just not that high of a quality. But also I just loved working with my hands, and just that sense of really being intimately involved in the creation process. And I also did sign designing and painting, literal hand painting. It was before we had digital stuff and plastic, this and that. And so we all did it the old-fashioned way. And I loved doing that. It was really fun. Calligraphy came in, when people had events and special things they wanted to do. So kind of added all that together, and that became sort of my own personal secret sauce that I was able to do while my children were little and I was bringing them up.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I had a husband who was incredibly proud of me and very, very supportive, and he wanted me to do all of that So I got to be a stay-at-home mom, which was pretty traditional at the
Yeah.
time. I really didn't want to have a career outside of my home because I had grown up in that kind of home. I was a latchkey kid from the time I was 8.
Mm.
I didn't want my kids to have that, so I committed to being there. And so when my oldest child, who is now in her 40s, was a baby, I pulled out my art materials from an old watercolor class I'd had in college. You have to take 100 different prerequisites, that have seemingly nothing to do with your major,
Yeah.
but they're all very interesting and some of them become very valuable later. Well, this was one of those because I really enjoyed the class when I took it, and I knew that I had a knack for it. It just came easily to me. So when I pulled these supplies out, I actually did some pieces for my daughter's little bedroom, and I entered them in a show. And so that was the very first art show I entered, and it was, probably like 1980 or something like that. And it was just so much fun, and just to enter into that camaraderie of artists, fine artists.
Yeah.
We're not just all graphic designers talking about the industry. It's now a whole group of people who love fine art. So that was kind of my introduction to that.
It's amazing how many people, I think, late 30s, early 40s, start kind of coming back to things that have always been there in them, but because life gets in the way, kids, starting careers, all that sort of thing. I know as you see in the mentoring program, I mean, we've got so many people that are in their 40s and 50s that after a career or after kids are gone or after things slow down, they start to, really pursue that. That's really important though, isn't it, for all of us, because as seasons change, that our art expression, our creative expression changes, but also as we're processing things with the Lord, I'm sure maybe you would say that is a way that was happening for you as well. Your art becomes kind of this sacred space. Did you find that to be true for you?
Definitely. When my husband would come home from work, he was a manager at the corrections facility there. He would find me, and I was often in my studio, and the kids would be out playing or doing their own thing, and he could tell if I had had a really good day because I had actually completed a painting. It was like I had a watercolor painting that I could show him, or a design or something. And I always felt really, really good about my day and just kind of that sense of accomplishment if I had done that. On the other hand, if I hadn't, if I had avoided it or felt stuck and for some reason got sidetracked, he could tell that too. It definitely affected my heart and my thinking.
Yeah.
So it definitely was a gift to be able to go into that sacred space. I love that wording for it. It's very, very accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. So probably like a lot of artists, I know for me, you start making baskets and then before long you got a garage full of baskets. So you're like, I got to get rid of these things.
Oh my God.
Somewhere. So did eventually, because I know you have an art business, you started selling your work and really seeing that as a business. Was that something that was exciting for you or pretty far into you as far as starting an art business? Or
well, no, it seemed like the logical progression because here I am spending all this money on materials and frames and watercolor paper, and my husband was even making frames for me at the time. And it was like, man, I got to clear this out and sell some stuff to finance my habit here. And I did show in some galleries in the Arkansas River Valley area, and had shows in Denver, Boulder, different locations, a lot of them, of course, locally in Buena Vista. And that community and that there were a lot of other professional artists as well, kind of in the same place. We would probably be what you call in the transition phase.
Yeah.
We were on the bridge and trying to make it. And so that's what we would talk about and encourage each other with. I did sell a lot of art. People would come to our community. Anybody who knows that Arkansas River Valley, Buena Vista area know that it is a real destination. Whitewater rafting and mountain biking, and just the beauty of what's called the 14ers, the peaks there that are over 14,000 feet, that are right against our back there, and just stunning beauty. And so people would come vacation there, and they would often want a memory painted later of this place that was so magical for them. And so I did do an awful lot of commissions of those sort of sweet memories that people had of that location. And
same kind of thing here in Asheville. We're so blessed to have
yes,
so many tourists or people retiring here, and they do value part of the landscape is the art, having people create art that's from the land and reminds them of their trip here. So that's always good. And I want to tell people before we get to the end of we're not by any means done, but you just have done a book, a retrospective of so much of your work that's got so much of these pieces in there. And that was a lot of fun for you, I'm sure, going back
oh
and
my goodness,
putting all that together, right?
well, I have to give a little plug here to my man, Matt Tomey, because I'm in his mastery program and we do our 90-day goals.
Yeah.
And this was in the second quarter that my goals that I drew up, that was one of them was I want to get this book published by this spring.
Yeah.
And doggone it, I did it.
And I got a copy in the mail and it's beautiful. That's
not
right.
to have a shameless plug, but
that's right. That's right. I love it. And we'll be sure to put the link there for people to get.
But it's self-publishing, which again you teach us, which I love with Kindle Direct Publishing on Amazon. And so that's where it's available. Yeah,
awesome.
It's called Fire in the Sky, an artist's love affair with Colorado. And it was really, I did it for two reasons. I really wanted people to meet me because I had a sense that God was going to take this further. There was more to be said because he's given me a heart for women to come free from feeling just stuck and passionless, and that they have this creative thing they want to let out, but they don't know how to access it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my next step is 3 more books that will walk them through that process and also kind of introduce me as a coach, one-on-one kind of process, sort of like we do. So the book was thrilling to do, really, really fun because it took me back to my graphic design roots. And I got to play around on the computer and rearrange stuff. And I mean, I could waste so much time, moving photographs from one place to another or trying out fonts and, all that. It's just silly, but it was really, really fun. And I felt very, very accomplished when I got it done and got it published. So that was very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. As we've known each other over these last, I guess, 4 years or so, you've been in the mentoring program and that sort of thing. I've watched your business grow. I've watched your life change and that sort of thing. And, as we talked about at the beginning of this, I think so much of walking through life is being able to respond to the different seasons of change in our life and that sort of thing. And as I've said, you are so courageous and graceful as you're doing that. I think all of us want something concrete to hold on to, and yet the only thing concrete to hold on to is change, right? And the Lord, in the middle of that. But talk a little bit, Jan, and I don't know where this will go, but just about this balance that you're trying to find in your life right now, that as things with your husband have changed as far as his health, you guys moved, energy levels change as you progress through life, what you want changes, the pace at which you want to work change. So how are you giving yourself grace in the middle of that? And what would you say to others that are balancing, that are trying to balance it as well?
Well, this is a whole story in itself, and we might have to do a second podcast here because this is where I get into the nitty gritty and the really exciting stuff of walking this journey with God. Because it really started in 2018 when God just called us. We were praying for Dave's healing and it didn't happen. But all he said was just say yes. Well, now people talk about that, give your yes to God. Well, at that point, I had never heard anybody use that phrasing. It's like, say yes. Okay, Lord.
Yeah.
So we prayed, Lord, whatever's coming, we have no idea what it's going to look like. It could be really ugly, maybe it'll be exciting and an adventure with you, but we just say yes to that. And so that's where it started. One thing I would really encourage people who are going through rough times to do is don't let go of your identity as an artist, because that's who you were created to be.
Yeah.
And God doesn't expect us to set that aside on the shelf as we go through tough times. we bring that with us. In fact, that's often the vehicle that draws us forward
Yeah.
and gives us joy in that journey. Probably one of the biggest lessons during this time comes from that verse of Proverbs 16:3, commit your way to the Lord,
Yeah.
and your plan, everything you do and your plans will succeed. Well, he kind of drew that out, that committing your way to the Lord, or whatever you do, sometimes the doing is as basic as, I will not go to despair. I will not go to resignation. I will
Yeah.
not go to fear. And that's my doing in that moment. I commit that to him and give him praise. I'm learning, this is a very fresh lesson right now, but just that act of praise and thanksgiving, even in the super tough times where you don't see a way out,
Yeah.
somehow opens up heaven to show up for you.
That's right.
I mean, I think giving God what I call our wild, ruthless, outrageous yes, that trust, that ruthless trust, as Brennan Manning calls it, so ravishes the heart of the Father that he sent his son for love of us.
Yeah.
Because it so undid him that we would trust him that way. And so that's kind of the process and the journey. And it requires staying in that journey, staying in that process, tightly linked to him, that grafted into the vine concept.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we are lost. I mean, oh boy, I don't know how in the world people make it through things like this without a strong, vibrant faith. And I want to say, I would not be in this place of strength and grit without Created to Thrive mentoring, without the community that you have created for us, and without you and your teaching and other pastors and mentors that I have speaking truth into my circumstances, into my life and my heart, and really shifting my thinking in so many ways,
Yeah.
not just about difficulties and trials, but about improving my art, becoming excellent at what I do, taking it up a notch, going to another level, and also about business. So many things made clear that before just felt like mud and impossible to do, now are just kind of that's the new normal.
Yeah.
So I am forever grateful for Created to Thrive and for the mastery program as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. And I tell people all the time, I was probably the last one to the party thinking that an online artist mentoring program would be the vehicle of community and healing that it is, but God had just continued, especially in this last season of COVID and all this sort of thing. It's just been amazing how God has connected and healed and restored and just inspired so many artists that are connected with us all over the world. We've all been through times, I'm sure you have, Jen, where you try to go through something like this, that you're walking through now without community, and to have others both close to you and online and that sort of thing that you can talk to about this and say, hey, I'm having a crappy day, or I want to give up, or I don't know if I want to do this anymore. To be able to do that is invaluable, right? And to just lay it out there and know that people are not judging you, but they're holding your arms up, they're walking with you. I mean, that's a game changer, right?
Yes, to find a community of authenticity is critical. And of course, we all experienced that to one degree or another during COVID. And as a person who had been living alone for not very long at that point, 6 months, 8 months, I was still kind of a newbie at it, and loneliness was still there. And then all of a sudden, I had been at the mastermind in Asheville in March that year, and we get home and like 3 days later, boom, the entire country is locked down. And
it was crazy.
We didn't see it coming. And so it was shocking, but we had that, we still held on to that sense of community and acceptance that we had, not just from relationships that we developed one-on-one at something like Mastermind Conference, but also gosh, just on your weekly Q&As, or chatting back and forth on our bi-monthly calls that we would have, things like that. Just people felt free to share their heart, share the struggle, and ask for advice. Everyone was humble to admit, boy, I do not have the answers to this. And that was so freeing for all of us to enter in that same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, any season like this is a wake up call for all of us, that we are not defined by our productivity or what we do, but by who we are. And I think this is, not only health challenges that people are walking through, like you're talking about, or the COVID things, or just whatever, it just is an opportunity for us to come back to that. And Jan, I wonder if you would just, I know that folks are out there listening right now that maybe taking care of parents or husband or wife, or, a child at home, or maybe just life shifted in a way that they totally didn't expect or see coming. And they had this
Wow.
dream and expectation of, man, life's going to go this way. It's going to be great. And then all of a sudden things shift, and they find themselves wondering, where is God in the middle of this? What would you say for them, just, as an encouragement, and also maybe a key point or two that have been very helpful for you along this road?
I am so glad you asked that. Okay, I am just, and this is, God has been downloading revelation after revelation for me over the last few years. And this is fresh. This is a fresh word. Jeremiah 29:11-14, which, we all know is, remind me.
For I know the plans I
have. But that he gives us a hope, and he has plans for us.
Yeah, hope in a future.
And we hold on to that. But during this time, I would often wonder, okay, Lord, where the heck are they? I don't have much hope. I don't see your plans. What's going on? And if you go on with those verses, he talks about seeking him with all our heart, drawing near to him, praying. And this is one thing that he mentioned. If you don't mind, I'm going to refer to a note here, because this was so pivotal and I wanted to share it. God isn't asking us to seek him with all our hearts in order to receive a hope and a future in him. Okay, you get that?
Yeah.
He's not asking us to seek him with all our hearts in order to receive something, but because he's already given us a hope and a future.
That's so good.
Then when we see it and experience it, then we seek him, then we pray to him, then we call on him, and that is our natural response. And so, boy, giving him praise, not just in the midst of bad circumstances, in the midst of trials, but for them, is key. Lord, I thank you for this awful disease in my husband's brain right now, because you have a plan. You didn't bring this about. This isn't your will, but you are using it, and you want to set him free. And I know that beyond a doubt. I don't know how you're going to do that, but I trust you in the midst of it.
Yeah. And
also his gifts through the process of his presence, just that tender nearness where we crawl up in our daddy's lap. We don't experience those times when we're joyful and dancing and happy and thrilled with life. That's what we do when we need a Band-Aid, when we need major surgery, when we're really, really hurting. We climb up in his lap at those times. And I would not trade those moments for anything.
Yeah.
They're so precious. So, boy, for you hurting loved ones, you're precious. You're so precious to the Lord. And I want to say this one thing here, probably sums up all of this. Our ruthless yes to him is the incense that we burn on the fire of our circumstances. That blesses the heart of Jesus more than anything else in the universe.
Yeah.
And we each have a redemptive story in which he is the hero. And that is why we say yes.
Yeah. Woo, that's so good, Jan. That is so good. That is so good. Our lives become this incense before him, as we say as we say, yes, even in spite of the stuff that we're going through. I love that. I know folks are going to want to connect with you further, see what you're doing, get your book, all
I
that
love
sort of
that.
thing. So where is the best place online for folks to connect with you?
Absolutely. My website is janthoreenlewis.com. The middle part is my maiden name, and it's spelled Thoreen, janthoreenlewis.com. And I'm the same on, except Jan Thoreen Lewis Fine Art, on Facebook and Instagram. The book can be found on Amazon. And if you just type in my name, then the book, Fire in the Sky, comes up, or if you type in Fire in the Sky, there's some other options. So put it in my name, it's the best way.
Yeah.
And I would love for people to connect. That would be really fun.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to put the links right here in the show notes for folks to
Great.
get that as well. So Jan, you are an inspiration, and I just love watching your story and the grace with which you walk it out. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's been a joy.
Oh, thank you, Matt. My pleasure. I'm absolutely delighted.